All right, welcome, folks, to this week's version of our Epic podcast. My name is Bruce Johnson. I'm the founder of the Epic Real Estate Investors Association, alongside my partner here, Logan Krutsch.
How's it going, everybody?
Yes, Logan. Good to have you here today, and we've got some good things we're going to be covering today on our podcast. So thanks, you guys, for joining us.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a quick background on yourself, Bruce.
So I've been involved in real estate in one way or another since bought our first house in 1988, and got involved in real estate investing back in 2005. Having gone to my first 3-day boot camp, and went and found my local RIA club and became a member of that. And back in that time, 2005, 2006, 2007, it was one of those markets where you can fog glass, you can make money in real estate. And that rapidly changed overnight going into 2008. So saw quite a transformation of the market in just a few short years there. So we went through basically the record recession period from '08 to really 2011 or so, when the market started to come back a little bit. So I've been involved part-time a lot, during that process, and I went full-time in 2014 as a full-time investor. So so I mainly focus on residential real estate. We're actually looking at a development too here in the near future. So we're kind of migrating into some different fields, and pretty excited about that.
I'm sure we'll hear all about it. So basically, it sounds like you have some experience in the field.
A little bit. It's one of those things. Growing up in our wonderful country here, we're always hear on the media and through our parents and all that the most biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life is buying your own home. And tends to become a hindrance to a lot of folks looking at doing real estate investing, because they may not even have their own home yet, but they can still get involved in real estate investing. And that's what we're here to encourage you guys to understand, that yes, it is a big investment, but you need to know your numbers. And that's really what our group's all about, is understanding, ways to make sense of the numbers, and what different strategies to buy real estate with.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I would definitely fall into the category of, I don't own a home, but I own an investment property.
Right.
And got involved in the group about, a year and a half ago now, just about. And, since then I'm doing this with my dad, who he'll be featured on the podcast at some point. You guys will get that treat for you. But, so we're actually in multifamily, picked up a 21 unit out in a town nearby here in Woodstock, Illinois. And, just been working on it. It's really going great. Anyways, we'll get into the show here a little bit. We're really talking about making an offer this week, putting the pedal to the metal, showing what's up. So we'll go over that, kind of what the, overall, what you have to do is, and then there's actually different types of offers you can make depending on the situation. We'll delve into that a little bit. So getting into it here, I guess, Bruce, what's the most important thing before you're going to make an offer?
Well, as I mentioned just a minute ago, that you need to understand the numbers. When you're getting involved in real estate investing, if you're doing wholesaling or fix and flip, you're basically looking at doing transactional real estate, and you need to make sure that you understand the numbers, so you understand how much of a profit there is in the deal. I've had people come to our group that can put a property in your contract with a $10,000 discount off of retail value, and that kind of a number doesn't work. So really need to understand your maximum allowable offer, and we've covered that in previous podcasts, and understanding how to put together your MAO, as we refer to, and understanding that there has to be a profit in there. We're not doing this to just go through the motions. We're doing this to make money at. So
definitely. I mean, it's a lot of work to go in and really fix up a house, and then if you actually go through the whole process and then realize at the end, you're like, oh, I didn't factor in any money.
Right.
That was a lot of work in that last 6 months.
Exactly. And I can speak from experience on how that has worked in the past. So. But also understanding on the other side of real estate investing, which is really the long-term game plan, is to buy properties to hold them for cash flow. And that's a whole other set of numbers you need to understand. What that looks like as far as what rents are, and what your costs are of buying a property, renovating it, making it rent ready.
Right.
So that's really the next level of real estate investing.
Right. Yeah, and so most people, when they're going to go and buy a house, they're traditionally going to use a realtor, or they would buy it for sale by owner. And so those kind of have different caveats that go along with them as far as what hoops you need to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, to start with, like if you're going to use a realtor, you have to follow like a complete system. So
Right.
I guess, can you help me understand like what is that system?
Yeah. So whether you're dealing with MLS listed properties, and that could be somebody selling their own home through a realtor, or a bank that has bank owned properties that are REOs that are listed to a realtor. You have to work inside of their world, and
Mm-hmm.
their rules and guidelines that they have. So normally I'm making an offer on a listed property, an MLS listed property. I'm going to be using a realtor's form.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Illinois, they have a new form, which is the MLS 7.0 contract. So when I prepare an offer for a listed property, I'm going to have the realtor prepare the 7.0 contract for making the offer on the property. And that's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into some of the online portals like auction.com or Hubzu, they tend to bring in their own contracts that may supersede or be addendums to that 7.0 contract.
Mm-hmm.
That it's basically the same, the same rules of engagement, so to speak, but you have to follow their forms and their guidelines for doing that. So
Right, and you need to have the realtor come out with you to look at the house, and
mm-hmm.
to even contact the seller. You go through the realtor. You can't talk to
Right.
the seller.
Dealing with a realtor, you have that party or two parties in between you and the actual seller of the property, which might be the seller, and then you have the listing agent, and you have the buyer's agent, which is normally going to represent you, and then yourself. So it's sometimes in those situations very difficult to actually communicate directly with the seller.
Right, and that is that's really the pitfall of the traditional system.
Yeah, it's worked for me. I mean, in today's market, it's a challenge to find properties that are listed on the MLS and up on Zillow or Redfin that still make sense for investing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're out there. I mean, we have people in our group that are doing that all the time, myself included. But I do like to deal directly with the seller, if at all possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So generally, like once you have done your due diligence and you know what offer you're going to make, all you need to do is provide proof of those funds, that saying like, hey, I can actually buy this property. And
Right.
as soon as you do that, you can submit your offer, and if it gets accepted, you go into your review period.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess during that review period, there's several things you can do. Assuming you wrote up the contract correctly, you get to go and inspect the house, and then pending on what your attorney says.
Right. You have the attorney review period, which is normally 5 business days. And that can be extended out too if you need to. Which is not unusual. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're buying, more than a property or two a year, you're, kind of getting into the game more seriously, where you need to understand the contract piece of it. But have a good attorney that you work with that can guide you along the way and give you that time to do your really firm due diligence as you get the property under contract. Really the clock starts ticking. So you need to get on that property with your contractors and go through and make sure the numbers are solid.
Mm-hmm.
Work with the realtor that can do your comps for you for the CMA, comparative market analysis on your property after it's fixed up, or if you're going to hold it as a buy and hold, what it could be worth. Once it's rent ready, what you could refinance it with a local bank, at a long-term financing, mortgage arrangement. So yeah, you have to have your team of professionals in place. So it's really important. If you're kind of on the outside looking in on this, it can be very intimidating, and that's why having a local group that you can mastermind with on a regular basis is super important. Get your professionals in place, and have a team that you work with,
Mm-hmm.
and make things happen. So
Right. I mean, what we do is kind of more of a team sport than an individual sport.
yeah, and there's individuals out there doing it, and they may have deep pockets, and they
Mm-hmm.
have their own team in place, which is fine. But for a lot of newbies out there, or people that have been doing it for a long time, when they get involved with a group like ours, they really see the value in that. And they're like, holy cow, I didn't know that.
Right.
So it can be of great value. So.
Mm-hmm. So say after your review period, you decide you still want to go forward, purchasing the house.
Mm-hmm.
Between that moment and then the day you actually close and the sign comes out of the yard,
Right.
is there really anything key to understand about that time period?
Well, so obviously you have the attorney review period. You have to get your numbers firmed up, get your job scope in order so you can give that to your contractors and have those numbers in place. Get your insurances lined up prior to closing. You need to provide a proof of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a good agent you work with, that can help you with getting the property insurance in place. If you're going to general contract the project, you need to have insurances in place for that, both general liability and workman's comp, and make sure that your contractors have those in place as well. Make sure that they provided a proof of insurance that you're named as an initial insured, your company is, and so that way when they get into the project and something goes sideways, maybe they get hurt or something happens, that their insurance is going to cover them and it doesn't fall back on your insurance.
Right.
You want to make sure you lessen all the liabilities on the job site for sure. You can ask me how I know, but I know investors that have done that and not had the proper insurances in place, and it's come really back to bite them really severely.
Really severely, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only other thing I can think of to keep in mind is, that selling costs. The person who's selling the property is going to have to cover those selling costs, and it's not necessarily on you when you're buying it, but it will be when you turn around and sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when you're buying a property, really your costs of purchasing are going to be, you have to work out your numbers for cost of money. If you're going to bring in private capital, if you're going to use your own 401k or IRA to invest in the project, or if you're going to go to the bank and get financing, or go to hard money, which is what I don't recommend, but it's out there. You have to make sure that those numbers still make sense if you're going to use any of those sources. So that's obviously one of the costs that you're going to incur, whether it's on the front end, throughout the project, if you have monthly payments or interest to your lenders, or if you tie it all up in the back end when you sell the property or refinance it to pay back the lenders, which is how I normally structure that. Make sure that those are all the contracts are in place for that. Everything's spelled out clearly. But as far as your costs, in addition to that, if you're going to set up an LLC or an entity to buy the property in, there's going to be some legal work involved with that. You're going to have some attorney's costs. But as far as the other costs of the closing are normally bared by the seller. They're going to pay for the realtor's fees. They're going to pay for title work normally, recording fees, those type of things. So I usually budget in around $2,000 for my closing costs when I go to buy a property.
Okay.
And that covers my setup of the company if I'm going to need to do an LLC or whatever that is, my attorney's costs, any special contracts for the lenders, those kind of things, and usually 6 months insurance premium for the property itself are part of that. So
yeah, very good. So I mean, that's kind of the traditional process of how you would actually go and make an offer start to finish. If you're going to go through with a realtor. But personally, the only experience I have is actually doing it through a for sale by owner. And Bruce, if you want to maybe talk about some of the benefits of going through a for sale by owner instead of through a realtor.
One of the strategies that are available in real estate, when you buy real estate, is to do some creative financing, creative acquisition, some seller financing. And it can get a little tricky when you're working with realtors. They may not understand how that works. They may be reluctant on submitting your offer because it's not a conventional cash or mortgage purchase. So when you have people on your team that understand how you make offers, it makes the process much easier. But if you're dealing with a for sale by owner, you're going to need to educate them on what their options are. And a lot of times, when we're looking at a purchase of a property, we're looking at making them a cash offer versus buying it on terms, meaning the seller's going to hold some of the money of the deal and finance part of the deal for you, or maybe the whole deal for you. Every situation is unique, and when you're dealing with FSBO properties, you have direct access to the seller to be able to explore all of his options on the front end without being real complicated.
And that can be a blessing or a curse depending on the situation. But more often than not, you want to be able to actually go and talk with the person you're buying the house from.
Right.
Because they might have a specific set of problems that aren't exactly represented through a realtor.
Right.
So you can kind of come in and really solve their problems better.
Yeah. And you want to create a win-win situation for both parties, and make sure that you both have attorneys representing each of you. Been involved in a few situations, maybe with elderly people that may, have to deal with their house that they've been in for a long time, and may not have any family around them. They may not have any counsel that they talk with. Make sure that they have an attorney representing their interest in the deal, so it doesn't come back to bite you in the butt afterwards, because you don't want to be the one out there trying to hawk properties off of elderly people and taking advantage of them.
Right.
Create a win-win. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity in the market to do that, and there's no reason to have to hide anything from what your offer is. So.
Right. I mean, in my case, that's the exact situation. It was an older couple, didn't have any family. They'd actually bought a place down in Arizona. They wanted to move out there, but this place was tying them back. So I spent probably 5 months, kind of, a couple times a month, going over there, talking to them, really negotiating the deal out. But what ended up happening is I would just talk to them about whatever, and we built this relationship over this period of time. And when it came time to actually close on the property, we had negotiated it out, but it was really, really quite friendly. I mean,
right.
They came over and gave me a hug.
Yeah,
said thank you.
That's awesome.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you're referring to a multifamily property, which is, for the seller, that's an investment property for them.
Right.
So if they were actually, hypothetically, let's say they were selling the property for $1 million, and that was their number, and they were going to budge on that, and they wanted that all cash. They're looking at a pretty big tax liability if they were to collect all that money on the front end of it. So in their case, I think you have a 5-year.
Yeah, we have
balloon?
a 5-year balloon, seller financed. We financed the property through them, which was great for both of us, because they get a sizable amount of interest, and then we actually were able to put relatively little amount of money down, which got us in there, got us fixing it up. Over the past 5 months now, we've done quite a bit of work to the place. You can still recognize it, but it's getting there to where it's really that big of a difference.
And it's a big project. I mean, you guys have a 21 units that you're, on 100-plus-year-old properties that are, needing updating. So it's, it's not a quick and done deal. And you have residents living there, which, you can't just kick them all out and tear it all open and do all the fix up overnight.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, you guys jumped right in on that, and with the encouragement of your dad, and can't wait to get your dad on the podcast here, because he's got some tremendous insights, and
just tell all the funny stories that have happened since.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to talk about how his plan B has become his plan A as well. So
right.
So it's all good. It's all good. But so you guys are learning quite a bit in the process as you do it, right? Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty much night and day. I'm kind of getting to the point now, almost with it, where I'm thinking about, let's go look for another one. I mean, we have a couple more months of heavy rehab on this place until it's really stabilized. But now, kind of even just thinking about going and doing it again, the hesitations I had the first time are not even there.
Yeah.
Which is great.
This is really a business you need to do in order to really understand, and every deal is unique, and you just can't put a template or a boilerplate on every deal. They, inside of the MLS offers, you got the contract, which is pretty much boilerplate, but when you get into the actual deal itself, whether you're going to fix and flip it or fix and hold it, every deal is unique. So I don't think I've had any one two closings go the same, and it's always it's very dynamic.
Right, definitely. But it all comes. We'll tie it up here. Like, it all comes back to actually going out and making that offer.
Right.
And kind of having your ducks in a row before you do that. You've calculated how much you actually can offer. You have your forms filled out, your proof of funds. You have your realtor. That's fairly important.
Absolutely.
Or if you're doing a for sale by owner, you've just made that first contact, and it really all comes down to just like knowing your numbers and taking action on it.
Right.
If you don't
So
do that,
let me just kind of elaborate a little bit on a couple of the points you just went through. As far as the form to use, I talked about in Illinois, in our area, the 7.0 contract. You're going to see gurus out there are going to say, here's our 2-page contract, use this one. Believe me, my attorneys laughed at me more than once when I tried to give them that contract, to review and to make sure it works. So it's a lot easier just to get used to the standard boilerplate for making your offers on listed properties. Proof of funds, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but so it's important to have that in place. And there are some online resources for getting a verifiable proof of funds. There's other ones out there too that are not verifiable, which are not going to go very far.
it's not a lot of proof in there.
No, it might just be a letter that's saying that you can get your funding, but could be a pre-approval letter from a bank. It could be a bank statement. It could be a partner's, a lender's bank statement that you're using for proof of funds, depending on how you structure the deal. And it's pretty typical for me to bring in other investors to invest in our deal, so I can use their bank statements for proof of funds as well as we get farther into the deal. So, And I think we hit on the closing timeline and the buying costs. Just understand if you're going to be flipping a property and reselling it, that your selling costs are going to be higher than what you paid for on the buy side.
Right.
You're going to have to pay normally, and I'm not saying always, but probably in my case, probably 90% of the time, as a seller of the property, you're going to be covering the cost for the realtors. You'll be covering the cost for the title insurance, recording fees, prorated taxes. So if you're selling a property in let's say September of the year, you're going to have 9 months worth of taxes you're going to prorate for, and the title company can prepare that for you. So just be aware that normally your selling costs when you go to sell a property can be anywhere from 6 to 10% of the value of the property when you go to sell.
Yeah, it might sound like a lot of things to keep track of before you actually go and make this offer, but just do it. You'll stumble forward.
Yep.
I forget who said it, but fall forward. That's really what it's all about.
Right. Yeah, don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Get a program, get something that works for you for grinding your numbers, for vetting your numbers out. Most importantly, know your market. Get used to a local market that you can understand the dynamics, what homes are selling for, what they're refinancing for, what a pretty home is, and the pretty home cost per square foot is a number that's pretty accurate for me. I can analyze a retail sale property really quick. In our area, they range from $100 to $200 a square foot for a fixed-up house, depending on what town it's in. And so if you're in a Barrington area, those are $200 a square foot. If you're in Crystal Lake, it could be $120 a square foot. If you're unincorporated McHenry County, it could be $100 a square foot. And one of the market segments right now that is a challenge is getting into the bigger houses. If you're doing single-family stuff, I'm seeing that the 3,000 square foot and larger homes are a lot longer sell time frame than the smaller homes.
Right.
The ideal marketplace is to be in homes that are, kind of entry level homes, or homes that people are looking to downsize into that are, 2,000 square feet or less, so sell much quicker than the bigger homes.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It all sounds very good. So, we'll wrap it up here with all of that in mind. I think. You guys probably get the idea of, like, look, just get out there and make an offer, take action. I would absolutely recommend to look for those for sale by owners. I think you just do have so much more flexibility with what you can do there, and as far as creating these win-win situations. But yeah. And
if you guys are interested in learning more about our group, our website is epicreia.com. That's EPICREIA.com. We do weekly meetings here with our group on Tuesday nights. These are people that are part of our mastermind group. And we also do local property tours several times a month. And you can register at localpropertytour.com if you want to come out and see one of the fix and flips or buy and hold properties that we're working on. We normally do those on Saturdays. So we try and be available for that. And Also, we do cash flow games a couple times a month too. So if you've ever played the game or not familiar with the game cash flow, it's a great game to understand the financials that are involved in financial independence.
Yeah, definitely. And it's quite fun to play as well.
Yes, indeed. So, well, Logan, it's been another awesome time together with you and talking about real estate, which is one of my passions, one of your passions now. And we're excited to be able to bring this to you guys. And I appreciate your attention here on this podcast. And stay tuned for further ones.
Yep, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a great day. Take care.